local in the village, but he's now behaving like a first-time member of parliament. I mean, the raising quorum was used to, if you've never spoken in Bunge, the only thing you stand and do is raise quorum. So Honorable Serem, as a good neighbor of mine, who was also known to my father, should behave like the adult that he is. He's a very good legislator. I don't know why he's behaving like a newcomer. And he's like a amateur, because all the matters are here. We will debate them here, we will discuss them here, we will agree on them here when we are seated on the floor of this house, not when we are out. Honorable Speaker, coming to the issue of alternatives to debt, I thank Treasury for the aggressive push towards public-private partnerships so that some of these capital projects can be funded through PPPs rather than from the exchequer. And the bill on PPPs is on the floor of this House, and we hope that members can support it so that we can go the PPP direction on some of the major investments. Honorable Speaker, there's also the whole issue of privatization and divestiture. We have not had any listings at the Nairobi Stock Exchange for a very long time, Honorable Speaker, for over 10 years, almost 7, 8 years, Honorable Speaker, actually more than 10 years. So, Honorable Speaker, I'd like to urge Treasury to move with speed, because we have a privatization commission that is not complete. The privatization commission has a chairman, but does not have a complete board. So Treasury should move with speed to appoint commissioners to the privatization commission so that the privatization commission can continue to look at the list for privatization so that we can make a decision on how else we can actually raise money away from just borrowing. Honorable Speaker, coming to the issue on planning, we must continue to fund and support the State Department of Planning so that we can plan, because failing to plan, Honorable Speaker, is planning to fail, as was said by Benjamin Franklin many years ago. Honorable Speaker, institutions such as KIPRA that were excellent premier institutions of research are currently crumbling and under underfunding. Honorable Speaker, this we should move and do. Honorable Speaker, in terms of CDF, there's an allocation under planning of 41.7 billion, and the committee has made recommendations, Honorable Speaker, for an increase that we will be discussing also when we come to the Committee of Supply. Honorable Speaker, because when funds are not moving, our people rely mostly, Honorable Speaker, on what they can reach easiest, which is the CDF. Every corner of this country you go to, you will see that CDF is doing what it was meant to do from the word go, together with NGAF, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the issue of, from the State Department of Devolution, Honorable Speaker, I'd like to urge, Honorable Speaker, for this House to consider funding for emergencies. Honorable Speaker, since independence, for the first time, there is no funding for emergencies. In case there are floods, in case there is drought, every member of parliament will have to go into their own pockets to look for money. The rice, the maize, the feeding programs that we have had in counties such as Turkana, there are areas where continuously on a monthly basis they receive aid because of the continuous drought. That has not been budgeted for, and we hope, and we have proposed as a committee that we can look at some of these areas. Honorable Speaker, a commission such as the Commission on Revenue Allocation requires support so that we can deal especially with the issue of on-source revenue. If you look at our counties, the on-source revenue that they were raising when they were still county councils has now dropped by almost 90%. So you wonder, in terms of reporting, so you wonder whether counties are no longer raising these monies, or they are being raised and going into people's pockets like pocket change without being reported and remitted into the consolidated fund account. Honorable Speaker, these are some of the areas that we have strong proposals to make additions to as a finance committee. We will be discussing. I know Honorable Chris Wamalwa was saying, can we, as finance committee, speak to revenue raising measures? But next week, the finance committee will be tabling our report on the finance bill. And at that point, we will be able to discuss adequately our revenue raising measures and the proposals that have been made by the National Treasury, and what we have listened to as far as public participation is concerned, and what we are proposing moving forward. And at that point, we will be able to discuss into detail our revenue raising measures. For now, Honorable Speaker, those are some of our comments on the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the budget estimates for 2021-2022. Honorable Speaker, I beg to support.
Well done, Chair Finance. The next Chair is the Chair for Health. Honorable Minority.
House is governed by rules and order. Is the member for Alda in order to keep on crisscrossing from one chair to another despite the issues of COVID, in the pretext that, Honorable Speaker, he wants to mobilize members to go out, yet all of us are with him in terms of seeking for funds from CDF. Yet, Honorable Speaker, by virtue of his actions, I'm worried my members might end up getting COVID, Honorable Speaker. Is the member right to keep on hopping around from one place to another? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah. Yes, honorable members, the member for Aldai, you know this is a house of consultations. And we consult from time to time. Even what he's trying to do is also within our standing orders. If he feels that he needs to raise a point of order on quorum, he can do so, and we will be able to deal with it. But as he does that, I would advise him to adhere to the COVID protocols so that he protects himself and also protects the members. But consultations for members, we will continue, but within the COVID requirements. Yes, having said that, the Chair for Health, the Honorable Member for Saku, what is out of order?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the chairs had the priority during this session this morning. But also, we members have come early to contribute to the same. So I wish to seek your indulgence that we can have two chairs and one member speaking, so that we are not sitting here in vain. In that case, then we should actually follow the advice of Aldai members so that we walk out also. Thank you, Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Saku, I saw you very early. We were here with you when we started. But we are the members who set up these standing orders. And if you had a look at Standing Order 216, it gives priority to the chairs, actually. And there are not too many. I just have about 3 or 4 to go. Then I will come to the members. So these are standing orders. My hands are bound, and we should be able to finish up with them. Yeah, just hold on. You will have your say. And you always have your say, member for SACU. So the Chair for Health is not there. The next is Justice and Legal Affairs. Justice and Legal Affairs, I cannot see. Labor and Social Welfare. Labor, yes. Yeah, then we'll have land, followed by sports, followed by trade, and then transport and housing, and that will be it. Then we'll have defense. In that order. Labor and social welfare. Chair,
Thank you.
proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance to contribute to this report by the Budget and Appropriations Committee. On the onset, I want to thank them for working very hard under difficult conditions that we are in the country to produce this report, Honorable Speaker. As I do so, I encourage them to continue fighting for the integrity of our budgets and budget-making processes, Mr. Speaker, and more so ensuring that what we budget for is what we can be able to meet in terms of supply, Mr. Speaker. One of the things that we have noted is that despite the budgets that we do pass in this House, Mr. Speaker, quite often than not, disbursements of funds from Treasury raise services out there, Mr. Speaker. And in the Department of Labor and Social Welfare, Mr. Speaker, we have a number of our departments that are suffering that cannot provide services because of delayed disbursements, especially for third and fourth quarter. We have in particular the child welfare that has not received funds for the third and fourth quarter, and thereby putting vulnerable children that have been sponsored by this particular department at risk of being thrown out of the schools that they are in, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I do request that the Budget and Appropriations Committee continue following it up with the CS to ensure that release of funds, especially for critical areas, is given priority, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the budget that we have in front of us, while it's under serious challenges of our economy, we do encourage again the Budget and Appropriations Committee to prioritize areas that are social in nature and those that also are able to generate income to not only sustain themselves but also generate money of funds to our country. The Inua Jamii program, Honorable Speaker, falls under our department, our committee. And as members know, this is an important area where the elderly, over 70 men and women, are supposed to receive money to help them to live a decent life, Honorable Speaker. In this current budget, we have a deficit of 4.7 billion, putting 128,000 elderly men and women out of the scheme, Honorable Speaker, defranchising them from their peers who are receiving this money. And it's painful, Honorable Speaker, when you have your neighbors receiving this money and you are not receiving it, Honorable Speaker. And this is an area that I really urge the Budget and Appropriations Committee to re-look again and see what can be done to cover this deficit of 4.7 billion. And Honorable Speaker, this 4.7 billion is for the registered elderly men and women currently. There are many others out there who are yet to be entered into the program through registration. And if we have to sustain this program, then I think we need to finance it continually and ensure that we are not causing grief to some of our members of the society out there, Mr. Speaker. This committee oversees the Department of Labor and Social Welfare, Honorable Speaker, which is also looking at very important areas, including the youth, the women, children, elderly, and people living with disabilities, Honorable Speaker. And it's unfortunate that these areas continue to be underfunded. While these are areas that are supposed to look at members of our society who are vulnerable, we continue to have them underfunded. The Youth Empowerment Program or Fund, for example, Honorable Speaker, was allocated only 60 million to support the youth-owned enterprises, 60 million for all our youth in this country, constituting 60% of the society. This is money that cannot be felt in any way. Honorable Speaker, another area that is underfunded and is unfortunate once again is the National Employment Authority. This is an area, or this authority has the potential to secure job opportunities for our youth who are underemployed in this country, in the countries of Middle East, Europe, Australia, Canada, and others. They have the potential to increase revenue remittance in this country by a large margin. And just to give a comparison, Honorable Speaker, in the year 2020, countries like China were able to have remittances of 59 billion, Mexico 42 billion, Philippines 32 billion, Egypt 29 billion, China 83 billion. Kenya, with all its potential, was only able to have a remittance of 3.1 billion. We have been, within the short time I've interacted with members of this committee, been discussing why we are not able to attract more riba exports. And some of the things that we have discovered, Honorable Speaker, are that our country has not been able to place riba attaches in some of these countries, Honorable Speaker, with only riba attaches in only four countries, including Swaziland, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar. And with our opinion that we need to increase revenue funding to this ministry so that more riba attaches in liaison with the foreign ministry can be attached to these countries to attract more revenue. Those of us who are following up on what is happening in places like Dubai, Honorable Speaker, the country there, with all its population, it's only 13% local. The rest of the people who are in Dubai, 87% are foreigners. And these foreigners are earning a lot of revenue for their countries. In our situation, because of underfunding of institutions like the National Employment Authority, that would not only help our youth to secure these jobs, but to also ensure that they are treated decently wherever they are, we find that our Kenyans out there, some of them are suffering. Suffering because some of them went to these countries without the help of the government, through agents whose sole purpose is to earn from these employees, young men and women. They are under torture out there. We do not have riba attaches who would be following up on what they are doing out there. So when you go to some of these countries, Honorable Speaker, you find that while other nationals are enjoying their employments, some of them securing very decent employments in those countries, our people are not looked at. They are not looked after. And it's for this reason, once again, I am urging the Budget and Appropriations Committee to look at some of these areas that would actually directly generate revenue for our country, Honorable Speaker. Another area is the National Youth Service, which is operating under a new act. The old National Youth Service that we knew is probably changing to an institution that has the potential, once again, to generate revenue, to not only sustain itself, but also generate revenue for this country. Anyone who visits the National Youth Service would be impressed by equipment that is there. Construction equipment, for example, that is sitting idle in that institution, only awaiting funding for their newly created enterprise that would help them to now turn itself into a business institution. Those of us who are also who are following what is happening in China and are aware that the companies that are constructing roads and other buildings in this country are actually directly owned by the government in China. We have no reason not to utilize the resources that are possessed by NYS to help us in the building of infrastructure in this country. They have come up with an enterprise. They've been looking for funding for the last 5 years, and all they are requiring is about 2 billion to kick off that particular enterprise, and we start holding them accountable to ensure that now they no longer rely on the government funding and start generating cash or other funds for themselves, Honorable Speaker. So this is important, that even as we may do our budget, even as we deal with the challenges that this country is going through, just like any other country, that we continue to be innovative, that we continue to give priority to areas that are social, because we must look at our people, areas that generate revenue to ensure that we support our budget and not to rely on foreign support all along, Honorable Speaker. The other area I want to touch on is the area that is covered very well in the Budget and Appropriations report, and that is the area of outstanding bills and stored projects, Honorable Speaker. Outstanding bills have been a thorn in the flesh for many of the Kenyans who genuinely did jobs in this country. Kenyans who today are living very poor life, yet they did supply or provide services to this country. And because some of these outstanding bills have been subjected to vetting, it's a high time that Treasury and the committee come up with a lasting solution to end this issue once and for all. Honorable Speaker, I read in the report that there is a recommendation by the committee that Treasury should come up with a long-term bond to be able to address these pending bills once and for all, so that year by year we do not have this item in our budget, Honorable Speaker. The National Youth Service, again, which has its own history, a history that should not punish some of the people who supplied goods and services in their genuine form, is owing suppliers and service providers the tune of about 15 billion. When we went through that list, Honorable Speaker, we realized with about 2 billion, we can pay the small-scale debtors who are suffering out there, small-scale people who are owned less than a million or two, and this would really help those people, some of whom are no longer existing. People may not know that due to these pending bills, some people have actually taken their lives or have ended up in dying because they cannot sustain themselves. And therefore, this is an issue that should be taken seriously. We thank the President for the directive that he gave, that all pending bills should be cleared, and it's upon Treasury now to innovatively come up with ideas on how to clear this item out of our budget. Stored projects, Honorable Speaker. I do not know whether we have a stock of all the stored projects in all sectors in this country. These stored projects are denying Kenyans essential services, some of which would really improve the lives of Kenyans. And therefore, again, we urge Treasury to also focus on this, put emphasis on the same, ensure that every sector addresses the stored projects in their sectors so that Kenyans can start enjoying the services of those projects as they were meant to be. Honorable Speaker, with those few remarks, I want to support this report.
Chair Lance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Honorable Speaker, I support this report, and I would like to thank Departmental Committee on Budget and Appropriations, the chairman, and the members for the work that they put into this budget estimates work within the shortest time that was available. I would also like to take this opportunity before I start, Honorable Speaker, to thank the Departmental Committee on Lands for the work that they put in. They interacted with the estimates for the Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning and also the National Land Commission, and they gave great recommendations that I'll be going through. Mr. Speaker, as the House is aware, we deal with the Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning and the National Land Commission. And with regard to the Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning, the focus is on titling, production of title deeds for land that has been registered, and digitalization, which is a huge program for government, where the president would like to have all the land, possibly all the land in this country, digitized to ensure that when the investors want to invest, they're able to identify where this land is and even be able to get an indication of its value based on the laws that have been passed in this House, and just making reference to the land value index that was done. Mr. Speaker, with regard to the Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning, most of our money has been put in production of title deeds, as I just said, and also digitalization. One thing that the committee noted, for the purpose of relevance, I'll just go to the issues of lands, that we noted, just as the chair budget said, that the National Treasury had not implemented the House resolution contained in the budget policy statement, that ours was slightly higher, and it has been clearly explained by the budget chairman. The State Department of Physical Planning, Mr. Speaker, continues to operate on a very low budget of 60 million. Well, when we started being in this committee, that is in the year 2017-18, the budget was more or less the same. Now, this House passed Principal Secretary for the Department of Physical Planning, and the PS has clearly presented to the committee, which has also been passed to this House, that there is a requirement of 1.9 billion for the ministry to be able to support physical planning within the counties, Mr. Speaker, to support physical planning within our counties. And we are aware that physical planning is very important. What has gone there is only 60 million. I would like to thank the Departmental Committee on Budget, because they listened to the recommendations of the committee, and this budget has been pushed up to 200 million, but still it is still very low. Since we passed a principal secretary for this department, it is important for the department to be funded. So the State Department of Physical Planning needs to be allocated a budget vote to facilitate the implementation of the proposed National Sectional Spatial Program, that is NSSP, and the County Spatial Support Program. The Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning needs to cease cash collection. Mr. Speaker, you notice that the Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning is a very important ministry for all the other ministries because it provides land, which is required for development. When we look at collection of revenue this financial year, by the month of March 2021, the ministry had collected 7.3 billion against a target of 13 billion. I'm just saying this to sensitize the House to the importance of financing the Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning, because it is a ministry that can finance itself and maybe finance other departments within the country. What the committee has recommended is that the ministry must cease collection of cash. We have said this before, and we have said that we are giving a close of the last day of June 2021, so that they do not have any excuse for collecting money in cash. Mr. Speaker, the implementation of settlement of landless project in this country is an important aspect of the government. The President has really been very clear on settlement of people who are landless. And the committee has recommended uniformity, ensuring that it doesn't happen only in one region of the country, that it happens in all regions. And we have seen the ministry making an effort towards that. But the committee noticed that only 49 million has been given to resettlement of the landless in the year 2021-2022, against the number of persons, 39,000. So you see 49 million against 39,000 persons to be resettled. That clearly shows that planning has not been done very well. I thank the committee again, because the committee, Departmental Committee on Lands made a recommendation of additional funding, and we got 250 million more to this, at least making it about 300 million. And we are really grateful as a departmental committee that the budget committee is able to take into consideration issues that are raised within the departmental committees. Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Lands Physical Planning has an interesting pending bill of 7,245,228,954 shillings. Mr. Speaker, what we noticed as interesting is that this had not been declared earlier when you look at the reports that we are bringing. But it was explained to us that they are put together, all the pending bills from different governments. I think the last 3 governments that have been in place in this country, Mr. Speaker. And most of these bills, we realized, are awards made in court cases in which the ministry had been sued due to commission or omission or falsification of documents by our own officers. Honorable Speaker, the departmental committee is very keen on this matter, because we realize that our own lawyers are losing so many cases, and also falsification of documents. They would like, the departmental committee on lands would like the people who are responsible for falsification of these documents to also be held liable, because you're talking of 7.2 billion in pending bills. When you look at them, it's matters court. So, Mr. Speaker, these pending bills were not reflected in the previous financial years, despite the cases dating back to the year 2005. And, Mr. Speaker, the committee casted doubt on the authenticity of these pending bills. And with regard to oversight, we said that we would like the ministry to ensure that they go through these pending bills, so that as they are being paid, we are sure. Honorable Speaker, as we go to the National Land Commission, National Land Commission has been funded very lowly based on what they present to the committee and also to this House. And we realize that most of the funding for the National Land Commission does not cater for development, which is very interesting. You realize that they're able to pay salaries, and that is it. And they have several projects that they have indicated that they would like to have funded. The National Land Commission has not been allocated funds for development expenditure, despite the several presentations that have been made for development expenditure to the National Treasury, including a proposal on vesting of compulsory land that has been acquired. We put so much effort, and I remember the chair, the person who seconded this motion, the Honorable Makali, was talking about so many pieces of land that have been acquired compulsorily by government. The National Land Commission is supposed to ensure that vesting of this land is done, but continually we have not been able to provide. The budget that they have been requesting for is 600 million. Honorable Speaker, it is important to note that the National Land Commission, I think the commissioners are using vehicles that were bought in 2013, a matter of concern, and they are expected to work in at the counties. So they are not able to move to these counties. Mr. Speaker, I would like to, as I talk about budget, thank the ministry for what the ministry has been able to do. Thousands and thousands, actually millions of title deeds have been produced between the year 2017 and 2021. And I would like to say that we see this as a great achievement by the ministry, and we'd like them to continue doing the same. And you realize that the Departmental Committee on Lands also reduced slightly the budget for titling, and with concurrence with the ministry, and also explained clearly to the budget committee why this was done, so that we can push money towards digitalization of titles, which, as I said earlier, is a big project that we would like to see it being funded. Honorable Speaker, with regard to recommendations, one of the policy recommendations is that the Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning should stop usage of cash. And I want to state here that it is not June, that it is by the 30th day of May 2021. So then it should have stopped. The National Treasury should allocate a vote to the State Department of Physical Planning, as I had clearly explained and stated the projects that it will go to. The government, through the cabinet, should review the current policy of centralizing the implementation of ICT. Majorly, the National Land Commission has a challenge with the purchasing of ICT, dealing with ICT projects, because this is being done at the Ministry of ICT, and they are saying that this causes challenges, and this year they recorded 0 in terms of implementation. They were not able to do anything. Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning should expedite the full implementation of digitization of land registries. Mr. Speaker, you notice that digitalization of land is up there. But most important is to ensure that the county offices are working. And the county offices have the infrastructure that is needed. That is purchasing of computers. So that now the ministry has been able to digitize Nairobi and its environs. And they are planning to go to the counties. So the recommendation of the Departmental Committee on Lands was that we need to see more construction of proper offices within the counties. And this is where they have requested construction of 3 offices, including 1 in Wajir. The northern region does not have a proper office, and this is one of the recommendations, Honorable Speaker. So with regard to financial recommendations, the committee recommends that the House approves the following. That is 1.437, 200,000 vote to the National Land Commission. And Honorable Speaker, I have said that this is very low. The National Land Commission has never received funding for development, and this is a concern, because this is where they'll be able to deal with issues at the counties. And also vote 112, the Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning, comprising of recurrent of 3,044,600,000 and development expenditure of 2,411,700,000. Honorable Speaker, I would like to just state the financial recommendations that were made by the Departmental Committee. The Departmental Committee recommends that 450 million to be reduced from the processing and titling and registration of title deeds in the land policy and planning program in the Ministry of Lands, and increases 250 million to go to settlement, as I had clearly explained. This 250 million, Honorable Speaker, is going to purchase of land for a group called Taita Taveta Teachers. And the land is in Kisauni, and it takes more than half of Kisauni constituency. And it is a matter that was passed by this House. So we really appreciate that this has finally been done. 100 million to be increased in the physical planning project. That is to make the the Department of Physical Planning to work. As I had said, it has been given a very low amount. And clearly, I've also explained that it requires about 1.9 billion. So this is just to kickstart the work of the Department of Physical Planning, which has been newly created. And then 50 million to go to construction of land registries in order to be able to boost the digitalization program. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to other recommendations that the committee made, that the National Treasury should avail additional funding in the future, about 700 million to go to Ministry of Lands and Physical Planning for digitalization process, so that we can see as many of our land in our counties being digitized. Those who have tried to experience the Nairobi one can see the advantage that we are talking about, such that a person can be able to get a search within less than 3 minutes. 300 million also to settlement, Honorable Speaker. sorry, just give me a minute, Mr. Speaker. 65 million, Honorable Speaker, for construction of land registries, I'd explained. 600 million also to National Land Commission for vesting, 74 million to National Land Commission for purchase of vehicles so that they are able to move, and 65 million to facilitate recruitment of technical staff. Honorable Speaker, with those remarks, I would like to support and thank you very much.
The next is Chair for Sports. The next one is Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. Not there. Transport, Public Works and Housing. Not there. We shall have Chair for Defense, and that's the last of the chairs. We shall go to the...
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity also to make our remarks on behalf of the Committee of Defense and Foreign Affairs. Honorable Speaker, we want to acknowledge from the onset the support, the tireless work done by the Committee of Budget and Appropriation Committee, running through all the 12 counties. Honorable Speaker, took a lot of hard work, and we appreciate the input they got from those counties. Honorable Speaker, this is the 4th annual budget to be prepared in the second term of the Jubilee administration under the economic transformation agenda, which now puts emphasis on Big Four agenda, and we are hoping that this budget will be able to help us achieve it as a country, because the success of those Big Four agenda will help the country to raise the kind of money that we are looking for, to create employment opportunities for the unemployed youths, to also spur the economy, Honorable Speaker, so that we have a bigger cake to share from, as opposed to what we have at the moment, where all of us are struggling to get a pie of what is already exhausted, Honorable Speaker, because you can only give what you have, and when you don't have, Honorable Speaker, your wisdom demands that you get a way of increasing that which you have so that you can have something to give out. Honorable Speaker, our security forces, particularly the Kenya Defense Forces, has managed to keep the Al-Shabaab threats at bay. The attacks on our soil have reduced tremendously in the second term of the Jubilee administration compared to what we experienced in the first term. We are alive to the threats the militants still pose to our people and our nation at large. Our forces remain alive to these threats and are determined to ensure that they have neutralized the militants completely. And this is good for the country. We all owe it to the nation, and our forces have done their bit, because there's been a tremendous improvement compared to previous years, what the Army has been able to achieve, of course, together with the rest of the agencies who are teaming up together to ensure that the Kenya we live in is a safe country for everybody to survive and be able to achieve their full potential. Honorable Speaker, I want to congratulate the Minister of Defense for prudent utilization of resources appropriated to them by this House. For the first time, Honorable Speaker, they were given unqualified opinion by the auditors when the audit report came out. And that's good news for all of us, because in the past, as a country, we have always assumed that what is given to the Kenya Army is a top secret, and therefore we don't know how to spend it. Having had an opportunity, Honorable Speaker, to go to some of the institutions, the installations, I can attest on behalf of the colleagues in Parliament and the Kenyans that for sure the Kenya Army has done and probably is one of the most successful institutions we have in this country in terms of performance, in terms of utilization of resources, and in terms of professionalism. No wonder the President is tapping into their potential and using them to instill some values and ethos to our society, hopefully that some of us will be able to pick it up from that point and make our country great again, as it should be for the good of our generations to come, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, however, I want to register my disappointment that there have spin some pending bills, despite the effort by the Kenya Army. In 2019-2020 financial year, for instance, the ministry closed the year with pending bills amounting to 8.1 billion. This is against the expectation or against the assumption that most of us have that Kenya Army or the defense forces are given their money in full. Honorable Speaker, the danger with this kind of pending bill is that it exposes them. And the last thing we want to have is our army being dragged to court in the name of failing to pay their pending bills. And therefore, the danger with this kind of arrangement, pending bills, especially in an institution which is as critical as the Kenya Army, Honorable Speaker, is that they will use the first charge whenever they will get their budget will be this pending bill. Consequently, that will reduce the money they have in their budget. So we are urging the Minister of Finance to be able to move with speed and make good the pending, the outstanding money to defense, so that in due course they will be able to pay their pending bills, because these are a critical institution, and the country is as good as its army and defense, and we want to have them comfortable within our economic comfort zone, so that we are able to ensure safety and the protection to our people, even for the investors to be interested in coming to Kenya, so that they can put their resources. Honorable Speaker, the National Intelligence Services plays a critical role in providing security intelligence and counterintelligence to deal with emerging threats such as terrorism, extraordinary threats, internal and social political threats, environmental and regional cyber threats, among others. Despite a proposed allocation of 42.5 billion, the agency still faces budgetary constraints like any other agency. We implore upon the service to deliver with available resources given the macroeconomic constraints facing our country, such rising debt levels and ever-growing fiscal deficit. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Foreign Affairs is equally a very critical institution. But even as we speak about that, Honorable Speaker, the National Intelligence is one critical institution which overlaps almost in every department of sector of this government. They're everywhere, and their efficiency, their success is actually going to impact on every department, every sector of this economy. Because without intelligence reports, Honorable Speaker, we have no capacity of knowing what the neighbors are doing. We have no chance of knowing what the foreigners are planning against us or for us. We have no chance, Honorable Speaker, of even developing systems to counter whatever is coming. Honorable Speaker, unknown to many Kenyans, national intelligence as an agency have done a lot for this country. During the COVID situation, they were used immensely, especially in tracking the people who are COVID positive to wherever they are for the good of the country. And yet, we all assume that that's a docket which should be handled by the Minister of Health. But the Minister of Health have no capacity in that sense of tracking down all the people involved or concerned, so that we can bring order into the country in terms of managing the COVID situation. And when we all succeed, Honorable Speaker, we succeed as a country, and we need to do that so that we can be able to attract the foreign investors and even the local investors to have the comfort so that they can be able to do their business knowing that the big brother is watching over them in a good way to ensure that they are safe. So, Honorable Speaker, the National Intelligence is one key institution that we all need to support. And I'm grateful that the Budget Committee has been kind within the constraint of the budget resources they have. They've been able to support them. However, they would have desired, because their proposal was, Honorable Speaker, they get about 46 billion or thereabout, so that they can be able to achieve their goal. This being a new year, and a year where we are preparing for national election, Honorable Speaker, it's critical that the NSIS is given resources and support they need to ensure that there is safety, to ensure there is order, to ensure there is protection, because they are the people who feed our intelligence services, they are the people who feed information to the police, to CID, so that they are able to act on the information they have been given. And you see, Honorable Speaker, when we started supporting them, the threats of Al-Shabaab and the other agencies have gone down drastically. Some people might say What is it being done by NSIS, Honorable Speaker? Their work is to stop. Their work is to preempt. Their work is to ensure that it doesn't happen. But if people are waiting for things to happen, then to appreciate that NSIS is working. Honorable Speaker, me and my committee, we have had an opportunity of going to the institutions, and I will tell you, Honorable Speaker, we have never appreciated the kind of work they're doing. It's great, and we are grateful that we have the kind of people in that department, and especially under the leadership of the General, who has done a tremendous work, and we are all happy as a team, and even the resources which have been allocated to them, Honorable Speaker, has been used prudently. However, it's not enough, just like it is not enough in all the departments of our country or our economy. But we are urging the Committee of Budget and Appropriation to be able to allocate them a little more money so that they will ensure that our country is safe. Honorable Speaker, the Minister of Foreign Affairs faces uncertainties given the level of funding against the requirement for the ministry. First, the depreciation of shilling against the dollar. Because you appreciate, Honorable Speaker, that the Minister of Foreign Affairs are dealing with foreign institutions. And their operations most of the times are foreign currency based. Whenever they're sending money to our embassies, they're sending them in dollars, or they're sending them in the hard currency, the foreign currencies. And therefore they suffer the risk of fluctuation. Whenever our shilling is weakened, Honorable Speaker, that impact reduces their budget by almost 4 to 5%, depending on the fluctuation, Honorable Speaker. So we are urging the Budget Committee to be able to appropriate them some funds to cushion them on those fluctuations, because they have to get money somehow from their own savings to use in the event that the shilling has fallen or fluctuated or depreciated against the hard currencies in the world. The current arrangement was that the mission retains correction for visas, passports, and other fees, and the money was utilized to fund immigration attaches in foreign missions. Honorable Speaker, there's a feeling, and this was the proposal from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, that all the departments which are sending or seconding their officers to the embassies, they should be able to finance their operations over there, Honorable Speaker, because in their budgets, they have that provision. But unfortunately, when they send the officers, except NSIs, the rest of the departments which are sending their officers as attaches to the Minister of Foreign to the embassies, Honorable Speaker, they have had to get the Minister of Foreign Affairs to finance their operations, which eats up into their budget, Honorable Speaker, and yet again this budget has been given by the relevant department. And we think, Honorable Speaker, that all the agencies which are being represented at the embassies should be able to finance and provide for their officers. Honorable Speaker, the policy on centralization of ICT services was not possible to be implemented in foreign missions. There was need for the Minister of Foreign Affairs to be funded directly to enable them to leverage on ICT for service delivery. While the committee welcomes the shift in policy change, the addendum as submitted by the National Treasury has not provided for such resources under the program Foreign Policy and Diplomacy, Honorable Speaker. And we think, whereas the government has a good vision, they want to centralize the services, but there are some critical institutions, Honorable Speaker, because of the security and because of the kind of information they're handling, the sensitivity of those information, we feel as a committee that it might help to have them given some exemptions so that they can run it independently, Honorable Speaker, from the policy that we have today of centralized service provision. Mr. Speaker, sir, the ministry has acquired some assets all over in the world, Honorable Speaker. We have some assets in some countries. We desire to have in every country, Honorable Speaker, because if you have had an opportunity of going to some of these embassies, Honorable Speaker, for example, if you go to Washington, Kenya has an asset, a very, very, very prime asset. You go to New York, Honorable Speaker, we have an asset. You go to Kinshasa, we have an asset. You go to Zambia, we have probably one of the best assets. You go to South Africa, as a country, we have an asset. But these assets, Honorable Speaker, just like any other asset you have at home, must be provided. You must have a budget to take care of their innovations and their maintenance. So we urge the government to have a budget for the same so that they can provide. Honorable Speaker, the regional development authorities require support. We either make up our mind, let them go to the counties, or we get them funded adequately so that they can do the duties they're supposed to be doing. We are already coming up with a bill as a committee to align the RDS, the regional authorities, to national government so that they can be able to achieve that which they need to achieve. Given the tight fiscal framework, we could not get resources to allocate to the departments. We call upon the National Treasury to consider the State Department for more resources should the fiscal space allow to enable them to undertake the non-funded critical activities, Honorable Speaker. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker,
the Honorable Ole Sankok.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute in such an important function of this House, the function of budgeting and resource allocation to various ministries, departments, and agencies of the government, Honorable Speaker, which is our sole mandate here. Honorable Speaker, and there is some issues that I would like to touch. One of them is ACPO, a program started by my president, His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, with very good intention to uplift the life of the vulnerable members of our society. ACPO, in full, means access to government procurement opportunities by persons with disabilities, youth, and women. Honorable Speaker, this stands at 30% of all contracts that are given out by the government, that it should be given to this group. Honorable Speaker, but persons with disabilities have been marginalized within the marginalized groups, because when issuing ACPO, Honorable Speaker, or those contracts to the three groups, they have been able to give, because women have the backing of their husbands, 25%. Youth are faster than persons with disability, so they end up having 4.5%. What only remains for persons with disability is 0.5%. Honorable Speaker,
The Honorable Millie Odhiambo, what is out of order?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't know whether the honorable member is in order to mislead this House. He has just said that the women are advantaged because when they're applying for ACPO, they have the backing of their husbands. Mr. Speaker is misleading the House by presuming that all the women who are applying for ACPO are married and that their husbands are able. Mr. Speaker, in what we call intersectionality, we have women who are disabled who are not married and others who are married with poor husbands. So is he in order to mislead this House?
The Honorable Millie, you are absolutely right. Every woman, every man in this country is equal before the law. The Honorable Sanko?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Before I was rudely interrupted by Honorable Millie, who is a very good contributor in this House, Honorable Speaker, and very intelligent member of Parliament. But I say that majority of women have the backing of their husband. Therefore, they take 25% of the chunk that is supposed to be given to the three groups. 4.5% go to the youth, and only 0.5% remain with the person with disability. And sometimes the tenders that are given to person with disability are not economically viable. Supply of toothpick, supply of toilet papers, and supply of such things that will not economically empower them. And even on top of supplying, Honorable Speaker, they are still pending bills. Some of this well thought out program by our president to empower us have become as a curse, Honorable Speaker, because some of persons with disability have committed suicide because they have borrowed from the banks, they have done the contract that have been awarded under ACPO, Honorable Speaker, but they are not paid, and the banks are after them. They are being auctioned, and some of them have gone into even more poverty than when they applied for these tenders, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the other issue is the issue of white elephants, Honorable Speaker. That one have come out very clearly. apart from the Mtiani House that started in 1986, Honorable Speaker, and still going on, and we still allocate money, and apart from other programs that have been raised from 18 million all the way to 200 million, and we are not yet there. We have not finished paying. We have a balance of 70 million, Honorable Speaker. There is this issue of standard gauge railway. Honorable Speaker, I used to see from the media saying that it is a rail to nowhere. I did not believe them until I followed phase 2B of standard gauge railway, Honorable Speaker. It ended up in a remote area called Emurtoto. The shopping center have one shop and one butchery. Honorable Speaker, if then rail to nowhere does not mean that, then I don't know what it means, Honorable Speaker. What is the catchment area of one butchery that is open only on Wednesdays and one small shop, Honorable Speaker, will be a catchment area for a rail that have ended there? Because I believe for economic viability of any infrastructure, the road or a rail, then it must start from a bigger town, end in a big town, so that there will be transportation between the two and a catchment area, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the standard gauge railway is only 12 kilometers shy of Narok. But from the Suswa economic zone, we have already constructed 52 kilometers to Emurtoto, Honorable Speaker. That 52 kilometers, Honorable Speaker, is their misuse, Honorable Speaker. It is open for vandalism, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, construction of 12 kilometers will have given the standard gauge railway economic viability by opening up the Great Lake region, opening up Narok and part of northern Tanzania, and opening up South Rift, Honorable Speaker, and Central Rift, Honorable Speaker. It will be transporting wheat, barley, potatoes, animal byproducts, soapstones, Honorable Speaker, and even fish from Kisumu, Honorable Speaker. But I don't know why it is stalled. I don't know if it is because of some of the MPs, and I plead with the government, and I plead with my president. If I have wronged you in any way, forgive me. Don't punish Narok residents because of some of us. If MPs from that region have joined Tangatanga, please don't punish the 2 million voters from that region because of some of us. Let us have the standard gauge railway be complete at least to a town. Even if it is not to Kisumu, as a feature earlier, through Bomet and Kisii, then just let it fall in where roads accessibility is there. There is only motorbike access to where the standard gauge railway have ended in Memurtoto. No vehicle can reach Emurtoto. It's only about a motorcycle or a bicycle, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, again, I may be very notorious in speaking my mind, Honorable Speaker, but I still plead with the government. In the name of God, don't punish 6.5 million Kenyans with disability because of me. 250 million, Honorable Speaker, have been chopped from the budget of National Council for Persons with Disability. 250 million. And this is the money that goes for wheelchairs. Honorable Speaker, there are still Kenyans with disability crawling in our streets. There is a child with disability crawling into the pit latrine, the dirty pit latrine of a primary school, Honorable Speaker, and soiling their hands, Honorable Speaker, and using the same hands to eat food. The self-esteem of that child is lowered, and even passing exam become a problem, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, now we are chopping 250 million from person with disability, Honorable Speaker. Some of this money, Honorable Speaker, around 50 million, goes for sunscreen lotion to protect people with albinism from the effect of sun rays. Sun rays for person with albinism bring cancer, Honorable Speaker. We can no longer protect them because the government have chopped money from the National Council for Persons with Disability, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, some of the money that was chopped, around 30 million, was intended for school bursaries for children with disabilities, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to inform the House that as a person with disability, my only option to succeed in life is education. I cannot become a shepherd I cannot become a watchman because they'll break my other leg that was a bit stable, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I cannot fruit mkokoteni, Honorable Speaker. My option is probably to study. If I'm blind, I become a lawyer because lawyers use their brains and mouth. Honorable Speaker, if I'm physically disabled, I become a doctor or I become a politician. And nowadays, to be an MP, you need a degree. So these people need degrees so that they can become here because they are physically disabled, but they have their mouth and they have their brain, just the way I've used my mouth without speed governor here in this house, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, but their money has been chopped. How will they get education? Honorable Speaker, lastly, the commercial attaches, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, in this country, we export nothing and import everything. No wonder our economy is going down year after year. Honorable Speaker, human resource, one brain channel to proper use is more worth than all the oil wells in Libya, Honorable Speaker. If we channel our youth, because they are very brilliant youth, into proper use by exporting labor, Honorable Speaker, into the Middle East and other countries. Because we went to Qatar. In Qatar, there are 35,000 Kenyans, migrant workers, working there. We need to export more of our laborers so that we can earn foreign exchange and also reduce this issue of unemployment. I do support, Honorable Speaker, this particular report. Thank you.
Well spoken and passionately so, the Honorable Sankok. But I do believe that the budget cannot be made or proposed with the intention to punish certain sections of the population just because of their association. Because the freedom of association is protected under Article 36 of our own Constitution. And every one of us is allowed, is free to associate in whatever form that they may wish to. So we cannot budget with the intention to punish certain sections of our population just because they may be associating with people that for the moment we may not desire ourselves to associate with. So the budget is our budget. And the constraints may be the reasons why certain budgets have been reduced must be the exigencies of the time. But I do not believe it's because of associating with one person or the other one that may not look desirable to some quarters. So that is the way it is. The Honorable Mwakuona, the member for Undanyi.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance to first and foremost support the adoption of the report by the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the revenue and expenditure estimates for the financial year 2021-2022. Honorable Speaker, this morning I'm a proud member of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, having, and of course I must congratulate our chair, Honorable Kanini Kega, and all the members for their sacrifice and commitments towards making sure that this report comes to the House in time. Honorable Speaker, I want to speak about 2 or 3 things. One, Honorable Speaker, this year's budget is coming at a time where we are faced by a myriad of challenges. One, of course, being COVID. But having COVID with us, yes, this is unforeseen. But, Honorable Speaker, the issue of pending bills has been spoken in this House for quite a while now. I remember some 2 years ago, our President, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, gave in a directive that all pending bills needed to be paid as a first charge by all ministries. Honorable Speaker, these item pending bills continue to pile, and it appears that National Treasury has not found a way of either forcing or implementing the presidential directive, making sure that pending bills have been paid. Let me pick Minister of Infrastructure and Roads, Honorable Speaker. We were told by the submissions by the committee chair that we have in excess of 90 billion in pending bills only for roads infrastructure, Honorable Speaker. These pending bills have negated the ability of the ministry to award new contracts that are extremely essential for the growth and development of this country, Honorable Speaker. You realize that we have roads that have been advertised and projects under the Ministry of Infrastructure that needs to be awarded to contractors. But because of the item pending bills, the ministry is taking its time. And they have indicated that, that they would want to reduce the 90 plus pending bills to some considerable levels before they award new projects, Honorable Speaker. But this brings into perspective and it makes us, some of us, analyze these pending bills, Mr. Honorable Speaker. You realize that there are areas in this country that are not beneficiaries of the so-called pending bills, meaning that the 90 or so projects, 90 or so billion shillings that have gone into implementing some projects are found in specific areas or specific regions of this country. I'll tell you, Mr. Speaker, we have a region called Taita Taveta County, that the 90 plus billion shillings under pending bills, no single coin is for a project that is done in Taita Taveta County. And we have other counties that also have been marginalized in the same area. And therefore, when we hear that we cannot start new projects just because we have pending bills, this means we are continuing to disadvantage and disenfranchise some communities that have not been benefiting in the projects. And now that we have a road that has been advertised just waiting to be awarded, like I'll give an example. I have a road in my constituency that was is been advertised, the contractor has been identified, but cannot be awarded because we are waiting for pending bills to be cleared, the Honorable Speaker. The road from Musau, Mbale, Veruga, Bura Road, that is about 2.8 billion project. That the delay in awarding is because of pending bills. And we are saying, we'd rather increase these pending bills. Let us also be part of, the Kenyans who are benefiting, for projects. And let's continue adding these pending bills if we're going to balance and have equity in projects as a country. Honorable Speaker, I'm happy with my committee that has indicated that by 1st October, the National Treasury should come up with a long-term bond so that they can settle out these pending bills. We are saying that this bond should be respected, so that by that time, National Treasury should float in a bond that will pay off all pending bills, so that then we can, as a country, we can start afresh. However, we know we have the issue of debt ceiling, Mr. Speaker. They are saying we cannot do pending a new bond for infrastructure because this will require us opening up on the ceiling of 9 trillion shillings ceiling for our national debt. Honorable Speaker, if opening the ceiling will make us get our road awarded quickly, if opening the ceiling will make Kenyans who are being affected by human-wildlife conflict be paid, if opening the ceiling will make the 70 old and above get into the safety net, if the opening of the ceiling will make projects that like Mzima 2 be awarded and done, then we are ready and willing to open this ceiling, because we cannot live in a country where some areas cannot be developed every time because of reasons of pending bills or national debt ceiling. This, as a country, must have a conversation, and going forward, National Treasury must audit all the projects that are done in this country so that we realize what we call equity in project distribution, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I'm excited about a policy that has been mentioned by the Chair Education on recruitment of teachers. This year's budget, Honorable Speaker, we have set aside money to hire teachers. When, as budget, we realize it is important. We would rather reduce some money from the infrastructure that is managed by PS Education, and have this money go into hiring of teachers. We'll have twin objectives that will be realized. Number one, we'll have most of our teachers get employed, and two, we'll have additional income when it comes to payee, Honorable Speaker, and therefore achieve our targets on income targets. Honorable Speaker, some areas in this country, according to the policy that they are championing, they are saying 70% of recruitment of teachers must be local. So if you're talking about a county, then 70% of the teachers must come from the local county. And therefore, then 30% from diaspora or outside the county. Because we have areas, Honorable Speaker, that teachers keep complaining that every time recruitment is done, depending on who is the director and who is in charge of that education, in that county, you realize 70% comes from outside, then 30% comes from local. I can give you an example, Mr. Speaker. We have areas that all head teachers, primary head teachers, all deputies, 90% are not from the local community. And therefore, it raises a lot of issues by teachers that come to us as their representatives, asking us, when are our children going to get employed, and yet they have qualifications, Honorable Speaker. Some very exciting news in this budget, this coming budget, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the Committee of Education. What they did, they're able to look to bring to us a proposal to pay out or to buy land that is owned by Taita Taveta Teachers, SACCO, that was bought in Kisauni, where my colleague Honorable Ali Bogo comes from. So they have said we approved as Budget Committee 250 million. So that we can settle the people in Kisauni, and at the same time pay the teachers, Taita Taveta Teachers SACCO, their money, because they bought land long time ago, and most of the teachers now are dead. Like we lost the chair of Taita Taveta SACCO early this year. And these are people who have been pushing for their money because their land was settled by squatters, and today it is historic that in this budget we have put in 250 million that will go to settle squatters in Kisauni, in Junda Ward, and at the same time my teachers from my county get their share so that they can benefit from their savings, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I finish by saying we would support every idea that brings in more money to the state-funded universities. We have universities in this country that have not found enough resources to complete the projects that have been begun. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to allow my committee that in their wisdom, we're able to raise around 50 million shillings to support Taita Taveta University to finish their project, the mining lab project, that requires another about 80 million to be complete. But at least for this time to start with, we have 50 million that will go to the university to make sure that that lab will start being utilized. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Nguna Ngusia, not desiring to be in. Honorable members, the chair for agriculture was here, and he had not keyed in. I will allow him to have his contribution.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be given to say something on the budget. First, I would like to thank the entire departmental committee, chair of budget, and his team and members for the good work that they have done. I also want to thank my committee for the support that they have also given us when we are doing the budget, and we are looking on the issues that are there. Let me talk about agriculture, and I'll also share, as my colleagues have said, we have a lot of challenges, and we think that there's a lot of challenges that needs to be addressed. Agriculture, as everybody knows, is the backbone of this economy. Agriculture is an area that really needs to be looked into. Despite the importance of agriculture sector in its contribution to the GDP, economic growth, employment, foreign exchange, and raw materials for this industrial sector, it is grossly underfunded. And when I say grossly underfunded, it is underfunded to the tune of 25.8 billion, which I think something needs to be done, because agriculture is an area that should really be looked into, as I said earlier. The sector already having numerous ongoing and stalled projects. Implementation of the projects take too long to complete because of low budget allocations and frequent budget cuts. We also have a lot of challenges in agriculture because somebody mentioned pending bills. I don't know how we're supposed to do. A colleague of mine here has said something. If if the ceiling can be removed to sort out some of these things, I think agriculture is an area that we really need to look into because of the pending bills. The department has a lot of pending bills. In the Department of Livestock, for example, they have a current pending bill of about 4.2 billion. And that one goes to halal, meat products, and also an Associate Architects Limited, which they have a pending bill of 25.9 million. In the crop sector, we have a pending bill to the tune of 10 billion. So I believe that if something could be done, some of these challenges, and in the crop sector, looking also in the cereal sector, it is really having challenges because of that. And we will also be looking and telling Treasury that they need to really work on that so that we're able to change some of these challenges that are facing the agricultural sector. We have some policy recommendations that we did in the committee. The sector is already having numerous ongoing SOAR projects, as I had said earlier. The National Treasury to provide additional funding to reduce the funding gap on the budget so that the State Department, the policies under the sector, and direct drivers in the achievement of the Big Four agenda, in addition to the sector of the mainstay of the economy, contributing to approximately 61% directly, 34% and indirectly 27% GDP. The State Department the State Department to improve on the efficiency of the utilization of the development budget allocation while adhering to the relevant laws, and to ensure that the projects are completed within the planned duration and the expected returns and service to achieve the soonest. On the overall expenditure of the project, the program resulting from budget cuts under the 2021 supplementary estimates, the committee proposed that this is regularized in the proposed 2021 supplementary estimates. I also want to touch a little bit on the additional requests that we were looking at. And we believe that the National Treasury allocated 1.5 million for the post-COVID economic stimulus program, on which it was not given, or rather they relocated their money, and which we felt that agriculture, being an area that grew, especially at that very tough moment, we thought that they should deserve that. Agriculture is a sector that really needs to be looked into. Like I said, pending bills, we are suffering a lot, and we need to look into it. Let me end there. Thank you so much. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Haseka, member for Huisero.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. May I take this opportunity to, first of all, thank the Budget and Appropriation Committee for a well-done job. One of the key aspects of budgeting is the adherence to Article 221 on public participation. They have confirmed that despite the COVID pandemic, they did it virtually and did receive memorandums from the public. Mr. Speaker, I draw the attention of this House to two observations. One, the issue of the pending bill, which I think it's time the executive and the National Treasury should put its foot down and address it. If you look at it, pending bills slows down economic growth. Two, pending bills also inhibits the performance of ministries. You cannot really measure the output in our government ministries and semi-autonomous government agencies. So it's an aspect that I think National Treasury should look into it. Two, I looked at also at the stalled project as a challenge, and sometimes we wonder why ministries and executive initiates new projects without completing the existing one. Case in point, Mr. Speaker, even in Huisero constituency, we have a project of Sub-County Education Office, Director's Office, which was begun in 2015. Up to now, the project is at the lintel. It has not been factored in any budgets, and this is an eyesore to government and even to ministry. Mr. Speaker, to attain this, I will advise the ministry and all the National Treasury to come up and really monitor the project implementations. By so doing, they'll know which projects are on course, which projects are outside the contractual period, and they can make adjustments when they're doing the budget. Lastly, when you look at supporting the budget, the government should also look at other alternative ways of supporting these projects. As the Chair of Finance said, that we should look at implementing the PPP in many of these projects, and also government-to-government purchasing or buying, which will reduce some costs. All said and done, Mr. Speaker, I support the report. Thank you.
The Honorable Obo Mohammed, member for Lamu.
Asante Bwana Spika kunipatia na mimi nafasi nami nipate kuzungumza katika hivi vipeo vya bajeti. Mimi mwanzo nataka kupongeza kamati ya bajeti, kisha niende moja kwa moja katika hii ya kwanza ya Executive Office of the President. Hawa wanafaa kupewa pesa zaidi, hata hiyo kipeo yafaa iongezwe juu zaidi, sababu ni kazi kubwa wanafanya na ni kazi nzuri. Pia niende katika Statement Department for Interior and Citizen Services. Hapa Bwana Spika, nataka kuzungumza kwamba hawa wana kipeo kikipelekwa juu zaidi ni vizuri, kwa sababu bado tunatarajia kazi iwe mzuri zaidi, maana kuna sehemu zingine kama kule kwetu kaunti ya Lamu bado kuna watu hawana vitambulisho, kwa miaka 3 hawapati vitambulisho, na wanao stakabadhi zile za kungojea vitambulisho. So hiyo pesa kama ni kidogo, hiyo kazi haifanyiki, hata wakiongezewa si vibaya, lakini bora kazi ifanyike, kwa sababu sisi watu wa Lamu pia ni Wakenya kama Wakenya wengine. Ile muda unamchukua mtu wa Nairobi kupata kitambulisho, hiyo ndio inafaa imchukue mtu wa Lamu kupata kitambulisho. Pia nizungumze katika upande wa ministry, Wizara ya Defense. Kusema la kweli, kule sisi Lamu ndo tunaona hii kazi yao. Vile tuko hapo kwenye boda, wanafanya kazi mzuri, na huwa tunawatarajia saa nyingine sisi hata tukienda paka pia watupitishe sehemu zingine, hatuwezi kupita peke yetu. Sasa kama kuna pesa inatakikana kupewa, wapewe hata zaidi. Kazi yao ni mzuri na tunawapongeza sana. Niende katika kuzungumza upande wa maji. Maji ni uhai. Hii wizara ya maji, hata wakiomba pesa ngapi wafaa wapewe. Hichi kipeo, yani ceiling, inafaa iende juu, wapate kuomba pesa hata nyingi zaidi. Sababu bado kuna sehemu zingine hapa Kenya bado watu wana tatizo la maji, na maji ni muhimu kwa binadamu. Sisi tunatarajia Lamu kuna mipango ambayo imekuwa iko kwenye vitabu zaidi ya miaka 10 ya kuvuta maji kutoka Tana Delta, River Tana ilete Lamu. So natarajia katika mipango hiyo, inshallah hii pesa wameomba itakuwa Lamu iko hapo, maana yake ilikuwa iko katika mipango. Na Lamu tukiweza kubadilisha, yani kuweza kuleta maji, basi tutakuwa tumetatua matatizo ambayo tuko nayo Lamu. Tatizo letu kubwa zaidi sasa Lamu ni maji. Poti iko, wageni watakuja wengi, na hayo maji yenyewe sisi sasa hii tuna shida na maji, na wageni wakija wengi zaidi itakuwa pia maji hakuna. Lakini naona Rais alilizungumza Lamu, na waziri naye amezungumza, tumeona kwa magazeti, na alizungumza kwamba Rais alituambia kwamba wataangalia vile wataweza kusaidia upande wa maji, ili wale kuweza kujipanga na ile poti ya Lamu. Bwana Spika, nataka kuzungumzia kuhusu afya. Hizi pesa zilizopangwa kwa afya, wenzangu watakubaliana na mimi, hata zinafaa kupangwa zaidi, kwa sababu afya ndio kila kitu. Lao tutazingatia sisi afya hapa Kenya, basi tutakuwa tumebadilisha maisha ya binadamu, kwa sababu afya inaingilia pande nyingi. Mimi ilikuwa sielewi vipi afya na wizara ya usafirishaji ambayo inaweza kuingiliana, lakini baada kupelekwa katika masomo na kusoma, umeona afya iko kila upande. Hapa bunge afya iko, ukienda kwa magari, kwa usafirishaji afya iko kila pahali. So tukizingatia afya, tutakuwa tumerekebisha au tumetatua mashida ya Wakenya. Kwa hivyo afya inafaa iangaliwe vizuri, ipewe pesa mzuri, lakini pia wale wanaoshika zile pesa yani wazitumie inavyotakikana, zisifujwe tukaribiana majina. Pia Bwana Spika, nasikitishwa na hii wizara ya agriculture kidogo hapa upande wa blue economy. Mimi nashangaa hapa hakuna pesa nyingi. Wizara hii inafaa kujijenga sasa. Inafaa kuwa na maofisi, inafaa kila kaunti ambapo kuna upande wa blue economy ijengwe sasa. Hii wizara kiangaliwa, hii upande wa blue economy ikiangaliwa vizuri, sisi tunaweza kuandika vijana kazi wengi. Mwanzo kama blue economy ikiangaliwa Lamu itaajiri watu wengi. Sasa naona pesa imewekwa kidogo, kisha tunasema tutaka kukuza blue economy. Pesa hiyo kidogo iko hapo, blue economy hatuoni. Mimi nilikuwa natarajia iwekwe pesa nyingi, tuone viwanda vya samaki, ndio kukuza blue economy, sio tu kwa kutafiti kila siku kutafiti na hatuoni mambo yakienda. So hapa ilikuwa natarajia hata kamati ya agriculture ingekuwa imeweka hapa ceiling kubwa na ikazungumzia mengi wataka kufanya upande wa blue economy. Tukaona hapa tungeandika vijana wengi sana, na tunao potential ya kuandika kuanza county 5 za coast, na pia upande wa Lake Victoria, hata Lake Naivasha. Tunaweza kujipanga vizuri na blue economy, na hii katuondoleshia shida kubwa ya ukosefu wa kazi. Bwana Spika, mimi hapa nataka kuwapatia wenzangu nafasi, naona time pia imeenda. Asante Bwana Spika.